Hello and welcome back to Sustainability Spotlight. I am your host Lavanya.
And today I'm joined by Justin Riney, Sustainability Commercial Manager at INEOS Styrolution.
Justin's work is at the intersection of sales and sustainability with a strong focus on the circular economy and expanding the recycling of styrenics. Justin, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us today.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I always like to get to talk about my favorite topic, sustainability.
Likewise, it makes the two of us then. So, Justin, I would head right into it. Your title, Sustainability Commercial Manager, is very interesting and unique. It's not often that you hear commerce and sustainability are talked about together in the same breath. Can you tell us a bit more about your work, what you do, what does it entail?
Yeah, it's not an atypical question. We'll start there. I think it's pretty interesting. On LinkedIn, I get mostly people reaching out to me to sell different tools to track ESG reporting and things like that, and then I have to break it to them. That's really not my space. I'm on the commercial side and advocacy, so that's really the two things that I focus on. I do 50% of my job, maybe a little bit more, is focused on growing sales of our eco products. So our eco products to us are either recycled content, so PCR blends. So typically 30% blends of PCR with our virgin material, and then also bio-based or biocircular uh, materials that would be a replacement for traditional virgin fossil fuels. The other side of the business that I'm managing is the advocacy side. So I spend a lot of time with trade groups. We're actually kicking off a brand new trade group on recycling called the Polystyrene Recycling Alliance. It's an industry effort to increase recycling access and rates for polystyrene, both rigid and expanded polystyrene in North America. And then I spent a lot of time with the legislators. I was in DC 2 weeks ago meeting with Senate offices to talk about the UN Global Plastic Treaty, talking about other concerns that are specific to styrenics, which is our business.
All right. So, so Justin, you mentioned a little bit about industry coming together to develop the right infrastructure for styrenics recycling, and whenever it comes to recycling, be it plastics or other things, there's one conversation that is always going on that uh, we are missing the right infrastructure. So
Mhm.
one part is getting the right infrastructure together, but the other is customer demand. And since you work on the commercial and sales side as well, how do you manage the latter and how do you assure customers a seamless delivery?
So it's tough, right? If you don't have pull through from our customer's customer, you're not going to sell
Mhm.
sustainable products. So we're selling typically to converters who then make a package, who then would sell that material to a retailer, Walmart, Target, so on and so forth. So if there's no pull through from that customer, there's really no business. So my primary focus is on our customer's customer. So going to different trade groups, organizations, conventions, and really just making it clear that polystyrene is being recycled today. We have eco equivalents for all of our products that we make in North America, specifically from a polystyrene and an ABS perspective, we can make those products. We are acting as a solutions company right now. So we are building to suit. So we don't typically carry a traditional product portfolio. We build and tailor PCR blends to customer needs. And so I spent a lot of time talking through the value chain, figuring out what's the driving force. Is there a need to meet a regulation? So I need 30% content to meet California SB 54 in 2030, or I need content for Colorado or for Oregon, any of the EPR states? Or is it a specific goal that the company has stated saying we are going to do this? And really, if those things aren't there, you're not selling much on the way of eco products because it's more expensive. The
Mhm.
traditional value chain for fossil based plastics is very streamlined. It's pipelines, it's big reactors, and when you get into managing waste streams, there's a lot of extra steps and there's going to be additional cost. We're doing everything we can to reduce the cost to build that demand and get it as close to virgin as possible. But really, if there's no pull through, like I said, from the customer's customer, you're probably not going to be moving a lot of this material.
Right. So when you mentioned advocacy, when you while you were telling us about your work, advocacy here would mean that you are advocating to your customers as customer on on, like you said, the eco labels or the eco materials that they can utilize in their
Mm-hmm.
use.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. So basically, when you so it's about, as you mentioned, traditional plastics or traditional chemicals. They Everything is set up. There is a reason why they are able to afford more competitive prices, because it is streamlined and things have been going on for years. And this is what is something which is also in the minds of customers generally, that things are streamlined. And if I let's say, a switch to a newer material or to a newer supplier, there is always a risk of non-delivery or a late delivery, or things like that. So, can you share a time when you faced a tough situation with a customer when managing your sustainable chemicals line, and how did you turn it around and turn it into a success?
So I've been in this space for probably 6 to 7 years now, uh, consistently, as in this is my primary focus. I would say that the one example that I can think of up front is, and it kind of goes hand in hand with just the nature of post consumer recycled material, is these material streams, they come and go. So when you find a quality stream of PCR material, specifically in something like styrenics, which is a little more niche in the recycling market as it stands today. Like I said, we're hoping to expand that so it's not so niche as we move forward. But we've had situations, at least I've had in the past prior to my time at INEOS Styrolution, where I've done all the legwork. We qualified the material. We're selling material, and then the PCR stream goes away, and then you're left scrambling trying to find different materials. So I've gone out of my way over the last several years to make sure that I have multiple qualified sources for every PCR product that we have. Just supply assurance is key, making sure that we take care of our customers. That way they can commit to their customers, and we know that the material is going to be there to the extent that we can guarantee it. There's always risk in any new project, and specifically a new project that our customers are not used to. And if they've never used PCR materials, there's a learning curve that you have to work through as well with certain people to manage machines and throughputs and things like that. But we try to make it as simple as possible for our customers. Like I said, we're a solutions company. We're building to spec, trying to hit exactly what our customers need, and then making sure that we have multiple qualified sources of PCR to blend with our virgin products. So I never have to have that experience again, because that was not much fun at the time.
Right, right. And since you mentioned learning curves, Justin, makes me wonder. And you also mentioned that you started 6 to 7 years ago. How was the learning journey for you? Um, Getting into the sustainability bandwagon, coming from the more commercial side of things.
So I fell into this. I think is the easiest way to describe it. I I came out of procurement and commodity trading, so got into commodity trading right after grad school in the agricultural world, and then started working for a packaging company in the early 2010s, and then from there got into plastics pretty quickly at that organization. Been there ever since in different roles. So my background is in procurement, and very early on at the initial packaging company that I worked for, I was given some opportunities for growth, and I just kept taking opportunities. And one opportunity led to another, and then my supervisor came to me and said, "Do you want to focus on some sustainable products so we can look at the next generation of our products and we can start to qualify other materials that are more green or sustainably focused?" So, sure, I don't know anything about it, but I'll figure it out. And I spent a lot of time, dug deep, learned a lot, listened to a lot of very smart people, and learned that most people don't really know a lot about recycling. So I kind of found that there was a bit of a gap there for me to fill, and it's been very beneficial for me. Now they have full university programs for sustainability, product development, and there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the way that I did it, but I got a very, I'd say, broad knowledge base doing the things that I did that kind of helped me. So being on the procurement side, it's helped me understand the other side of the equation when I'm negotiating and working on new projects. So I kind of know what the drivers are for the people that I'm working with. And then on the commercial side, I've learned a lot about how to make sure that we're communicating exactly what it is that we're going to do, and we're very clear and we're very precise with what the expectations should be, level setting, all of that good stuff. And then just spending time getting to know other people in the industry. And the one great thing about the plastics industry, I'll throw a little shout out for our industry as a whole. There are a lot of really good people here, and they will pour into you if you allow for it. And you can find really good mentors very easily in this industry, either within the company that these folks are working for. So if it's somebody young, maybe they could talk to their supervisor to figure out if they have a mentoring program. But it's been great for me. I've learned a ton because I have no science background at all. And I
Mhm.
spend a lot of time talking about scientific things because of spending a lot of time with smart people. But I think I've given this advice to several people because I get people on LinkedIn all the time reaching out. How do you get into the roles that you're in? And I've always said, and I will continue to say, take a job with a company that you respect and respects its people and
Mhm.
has a focus on sustainability in any way that you can, any role that you can. And then make it clear to your supervisor that this is where you want to go eventually, and just work as hard as you can in the role that you're in. And then the next job takes care of itself. And then the next job. It's worked for me, and I know it's worked for a lot of other people.
Right, right. And specific to, I've got pretty interested, and this is why we are talking today, Justin, is that this is a new and emerging field that is coming up, and you as well must have seen the evolution of the field of how the sustainability has been in talks for years now in the chemical industry as EHS, and it has always been there, but ESG picked up, and but it still remained a kind of compliance and reporting thing. But it is very recent that we have started to talk of sales and commercial people like yourself, and more formal job profiles that have both of these things together. And there is a small community that is coming up right now, and for newcomers who are new to their field, who are new to this job profile of marrying sustainability into a commercial business role, Do you have any tips or advice so that they can excel in their position?
Yeah, I would say that the most important thing is to understand the recycling market and the eco products market. So, specifically, feedstocks that go into, um, like we mentioned earlier, you've got bioattributed or you've got biocircular. What goes into making those products? How are they made? Where can you source them? So, really digging into the nuts and bolts of how the industry works before you start trying to sell this stuff. And that would give you a leg up on me because I was trying to do both at the same time. So I was building the plane and flying at the same time. So I was learning a lot and learning from mistakes. And I would say that my career is a litany and a history of mistakes, and it's kind of built me to where I'm at today. So if you listen to anything I say, is learn from my mistakes now, so you're not repeating them in the future, and you'll have a leg up. But yeah, really understand the recycling market. There's a lot of complexity to the recycling market. Every municipality is different. Every uh, recovery facility is different. Some collect PET, some collect just PET, HDPE, PP, and polystyrene, which is our material that we're focused on. Everything is different, and there are different packaging formats that are accepted. Why is that? Understanding APR regulations for or design different design platforms and how to design for recyclable content, so you understand what it is that the recyclers are looking for, so you make sure that when you're working with your customer, you make it very clear to them, you probably shouldn't add this to it because that will make this not recyclable in many municipalities. So just understanding the end markets before you start running down a path is a big deal. So that way you because a lot of packaging companies are getting better and they are learning a lot about this space, but there are still a lot of people that don't really know a lot about the recycling market and PCR materials and things of that nature. So they're going to look to somebody in my role as a bit of an expert. And so the more you know and the more you can make them feel comfortable that you know what you're talking about to an extent, the easier it is to make sales. And so I would say learning the industry first is key. And then next step is sales are difficult. This is a very long sales cycle. This is not your traditional selling plastics, because most plastics that I've dealt with in the past are commodity. These are commodity products, but they're not sold like commodities. So you have to really understand the nuts and bolts of how long it's going to take to source the material, lock it in, qualify. It's a longer term process. So you have to have a lot of patience. So if you're not a patient person, probably not a great fit for you.
Right. So I hear that learning is pretty important, and the and just being on your toes to keep learning both about your internal processes and also about processes at your customers, and so you can also be on a consultative state always as you go through conversations with them is pretty important. So Justin, just another sneak or a little detail into this. Did you also have to collaborate and communicate a lot with your internal sustainability teams or process teams to understand all of these things better? And how did you do that?
Well, yes. Short answer. Long answer is I spend a lot of time with the R&D folks in any organization I've been in the past, because they are closer to the customer in many cases and what the customer needs and the gaps that the customer has, because they're the ones that are trying to solve for those gaps. So I spent a lot of time early on in any organization getting to know the R&D team and product development. Where are we at? What are we working on? And how can I help? How can I help source material or grease the wheels to make these projects work? Um, But I think the biggest thing for me is getting to know the customer. I spent a lot of time very early on meeting with as many big customers that have any interest in sustainability as I possibly could, to talk about what we're doing, what our focus is, how we can support the customer. And polystyrene is recyclable. We have it. We can make product for you, and we would love to make PCR content product for you. And so a lot of the customers aren't even aware of that, because the narrative out there is polystyrene is not recyclable. It is a contaminant within the recycling industry. And it's my job to change that narrative and to prove that polystyrene is recyclable. And it's not just my job, it's the industry of polystyrene. So that's, once again, harkening back to the Polystyrene Recycling Alliance and getting the message out there that we have the materials. We would love to support our customers, and how can I work best with the customer to make sure that we have a product that's a fit to the needs that they have.
Right. Right. This was wonderful, and a lot of learning for me personally, because I'm starting to take a lot of interest in how sustainability is being used as a value proposition by commercial teams. And this our conversation has really helped me gain a lot of insights into how professionals like you are working today, Justin. So thank you for sharing your experiences and insights. It's absolutely amazing to see how sales and sustainability can work hand in hand to drive real impact, to really change not only consumer behavior, but see a change across the supply chain. So before we wrap up, Justin, any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, first, I'd like to echo the sentiment, and I appreciate you having me on. But honestly, the goal is to make this world a better place, right? That's why any one of us gets into sustainability. We want to find solutions to the world's big problems, and plastic waste is a big problem that we need to solve for. And it's a huge challenge to change narratives, change minds, hearts, souls. But it's an important one, because if you move away from plastics and you move to paper, you're going to increase your greenhouse gas emissions. So looking at this holistically is important as well. But I think the last thing that I'd like to mention is I am starting my own podcast as well, specifically on plastics and changing the narrative around plastics. So it's not up yet, but Redefining Plastics is going to be on YouTube and all the other podcast sources. So please check that out if you're interested in learning more about what I'm doing.
We will also make sure to add a link to the podcast if it is already released at the time that this podcast is released. So that is the case, you will find a link to it in the description of this podcast as well. So thanks again, Justin, for joining us today. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show and learning from your journey.
All right. Thanks for having me.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Sustainability Spotlight. Don't forget to leave us a review if you enjoyed today's conversation, and we will be back soon with more discussions on the future of sustainability. Until next time.